John, Henderson Diversified Income Limited, what does the company do? In other words, what's its objective?
Yeah, the company, or the ticker is HDIV, is a diversified income company. So the objective is to achieve income paid quarterly to shareholders of LIBOR plus 125.
And how do you go about achieving that objective?
Yeah, this is an unusual company because we are allowed to invest in secured loans as well as more mainstream asset classes such as high yield bonds, investment grade, and even government bonds. And conceptually, at the bottom of the interest rate cycle, we would have quite a lot of loans, secured loans, which would float up when interest rates were to rise, as they are benchmarked over LIBOR. And that asset allocation would vary over time. And at the top of the interest rate cycle, we would like to lock in some fixed rate coupons for our investors, whether it be high yield bonds or investment grade bonds. And then as interest rates fall, we would have locked into a higher yield for the clients. That's the kind of stylized approach. We spend a lot of time on the asset allocation, and we look at the relative value between floating rate assets, as in secured loans, and the relative value of those assets against investment grade bonds and high yield bonds, and that varies with the interest rate cycle and the default cycle, as you would expect.
And that's a reasonably wide range of assets that you can choose from. How do you go about choosing those assets? In other words, what's your investment style?
Yeah, the style is pretty much based on default probability, as in how much risk do you want to take, and obviously would you expect, are you getting paid for that risk? And that varies between those different asset classes, because people holding loans will broadly be a different community from holding high yield bonds and indeed investment grade. So you have to look at who wants to hold those assets when in the economic cycle. And broadly we tend to invest in large businesses which are broadly not particularly cyclical. They have a reason to exist, and if possible they have pricing power, and they tend to be in quite consolidated industries. So a good example of that is we hold AA bonds and the RAC loan. We actually hold two of the big players in that industry, which is obviously quite consolidated. Just one thing to mention as well, within some companies might issue loans, senior bonds and junior bonds. So we might switch maybe between the junior bonds into the senior loans or vice versa, subject to the relative value of those and subject to our view on interest rates. If a company were to default, obviously we wouldn't buy it. But if we were in that environment, you'd much rather have the senior loans than the junior unsecured bonds.
And are there any limits or restrictions around the different assets that you can allocate?
Not really. It's pretty free mandate, which is, I think, it's flexible, and we do dynamically asset allocate. But obviously what is important to the shareholders and to us is paying the quarterly income stream.
And how long would you typically hold a position? Is there an average period that you
Yeah,
hold?
there's nothing set in stone. Generally we hold the physical bonds slightly longer. We do use credit derivatives as well to enhance coupon. They tend to be held for shorter periods of time. But generally we like to find large, reliable, safe and sensible assets to invest in industries which we like. So we are quite overweight in the cable TV industry, the mobile phone industry, the packaging industry, healthcare industry. And we tend to be quite shy of the more cyclical ones, which if we were to hold, we wouldn't hold for very long, such as shipping, airlines, steel, autos. So it kind of varies. It's subject to the vagaries of the market. But something like the European cable TV industry, we've held for years and years. The bonds have matured and we refinanced with Liberty, which is a big holder, which includes Virgin Media, for example. And that's just been a good, sensible carry or yield play for the clients.
You mentioned credit derivatives. I think it's important to mention that this company does use gearing, borrowing, in order to potentially enhance returns for investors.
No, exactly right. I mean, this is a credit-sensitive company with limited interest rate sensitivity, and indeed, if interest rates were to rise, we could pay enhanced dividends to the shareholders. We do employ gearing, whether it be traditional bank gearing, so we borrow from the bank at roughly 1%, and invest in loans at roughly 4%, so there's an arbitrage there. We also use credit derivatives by selling protection, if you like, selling insurance on probabilities of events happening down the future or not. For that, you receive a premium income, and that goes straight through to the income stream. So currently, we're about 25% geared. That will magnify up days and magnify down days. But with low default rates, a degree of gearing and a degree of arbitrage, as in borrow cheap, lend longer, in our opinion, makes sense.
And finally, it's not just you working on this, is it? There's a team behind you.
Yeah, well, Jenna and I do the asset allocation, and Nick Ware in my team helps a lot on the stock selection there. In addition, we have a big secured loan team in Henderson, and we essentially outsource the loan management to the well-proven loan team within Henderson. We work closely with them, But we set the asset allocation and let them get on with the loans.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you.